The rain hammered Seattle like it had a personal grudge, which made sense because everything else in my life seemed to carry one too. I sat in my Honda Civic, yeah, a Civic, not some flashy sports car, watching the terminal doors through streaks of water that turned the world into an impressionist painting. The kind where everything looks distorted and wrong. My name is Holden Ravell, and I'm probably the last idiot in America who still believes marriage counseling works. Or believed, past tense, as of about 30 seconds ago. The automatic doors slid open, and there she was. Sylvie Norren, still using her maiden name for professional reasons, she'd always said. My wife of 8 years walked out arm in arm with Derrick Lorne, her client. Her very wealthy, very married, very smug client who was supposed to be in Chicago this week, according to the business calendar she'd left open on our kitchen counter. They weren't trying to hide it. Hell, Sylvie was practically glowing, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the weather, wearing that red coat I'd bought her for Christmas. The one she'd claimed was too flashy to wear anywhere important. I watched them approach a black Mercedes, his car, not a rental, which meant this wasn't some spur-of-the-moment thing. This was planned, orchestrated, a performance, and I was the audience of one. Derrick opened the passenger door for her, and she turned back toward the terminal. For a moment, I thought she'd spotted me. But no, she was just checking her reflection in the glass doors, adjusting her lipstick with the casual confidence of someone who'd never faced consequences for anything in her 36 years. That's when she saw my car. Our eyes met through 40 feet of rain and my cracked windshield. Instead of shame or surprise, she smiled. Actually smiled. Then she leaned over and whispered something to Derrick, who looked my way and laughed. They walked over. I rolled down my window, rain immediately soaking my sleeve. Sylvie leaned down, close enough that I could smell her perfume, the expensive stuff she saved for special occasions. "Don't like it?" she said, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when she thought she'd won something. "Get a divorce." Derrick stepped up behind her, adjusting his designer watch with theatrical precision. "Problem here, buddy?" The word buddy hit like a slap, but I kept my voice level. "No problem, just picking up my wife from her business trip." "Business trip." Sylvie laughed, the sound sharp as broken glass. "Right. Well, my business is concluded. For now." She straightened up, and Derrick winked at me. Actually winked, like we were sharing some joke instead of him rubbing my nose in my own humiliation. They walked back to the Mercedes, not hurrying, not hiding. Derrick held an umbrella over her while she got in, playing the gentleman. The engine purred to life, a sound my Honda had never made and never would, and they drove away into the Seattle gloom. I sat there for another 10 minutes, rain drumming on the roof, watching other people's reunions through the terminal windows. Happy couples, business travelers, families. Normal people living normal lives where wives didn't flaunt their affairs at airport pickups. My phone buzzed. A text from Sylvie. "Don't wait up. Staying at the Fairmont tonight. Business dinner." I stared at the message, then at the wedding ring still on my finger. 8 years. 8 years of marriage counseling sessions where she'd nod and agree and promise to work on communication. 8 years of me believing that people meant what they said, that vows actually meant something. The rain kept falling, but something inside me had shifted. The humiliation was still there, burning in my chest, but underneath it was something colder, something calculating. I started the engine and drove home through streets that looked different somehow, like I was seeing them through new eyes. The house we'd bought together in Queen Anne, the mortgage we'd split, the life we'd built, all of it suddenly felt temporary, negotiable. Our house sat dark and empty, just like it had for the past 3 business trips this month. I parked in the driveway. Sylvie always took the garage, said her BMW needed protection from the elements, and walked up the front steps. Inside, everything was exactly as she'd left it. Coffee cup in the sink, Her laptop charger snaked across the kitchen counter, yesterday's mail scattered on the dining room table, the casual mess of someone who expected others to clean up after them. I walked upstairs to our bedroom and opened her closet, half empty, which explained the oversized suitcase she'd been dragging around lately. She'd been moving her favorite clothes out gradually, probably to Derrick's place. Smart. Sylvie had always been smart, especially when it came to getting what she wanted, but I was smart too. I'd just never had a reason to prove it. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I went to my home office and fired up my computer. As Chief Technology Officer for a mid-sized software company, I knew my way around digital systems. I also knew my way around Sylvie's accounts, passwords, and online habits. She'd never been careful about security, always said it was too much trouble to remember different passwords for everything. Her social media told the story she wanted the world to see. Photos from the business conference in Portland last week, except the conference had been virtual. Pictures of client dinners at restaurants I'd never been to, tagged with locations that didn't match her supposed work schedule. And there, posted just 20 minutes ago, a photo of her and Derrick at some upscale bar downtown. The caption read, "Celebrating successful partnerships. Dater business life. Batter blessed." Blessed. She thought she was blessed. I screenshot everything, then dug deeper. Email accounts, cloud storage, financial records. The digital breadcrumbs of an affair conducted by someone who thought she was untouchable. By midnight, I had a complete picture. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges, even a car rental from last month when she'd claimed her BMW was in the shop. She'd been sloppy, confident that her tech-challenged husband would never think to look. I printed everything, organized it in a folder, then did something I'd never done in 8 years of marriage. I packed her bags. Not angrily, not dramatically, methodically. I folded her remaining clothes, packed her toiletries, collected her books and jewelry. Everything that belonged to her went into 3 neat suitcases, which I lined up by the front door. Then I did the practical things. Removed her from our joint accounts, changed the passwords on our shared services, canceled her credit cards, the ones in my name anyway, called our cell phone provider and suspended her line. The divorce papers took longer. I downloaded the forms months ago, back when I'd still thought marriage counseling might work, but wanted to be prepared. Just in case. I'd never filled them out, but I'd kept them in a folder labeled insurance documents, where Sylvie would never think to look. I filled them out now, signed them, and left them on the kitchen table next to her coffee cup. By 3 a.m., I was done. The house felt different, cleaner somehow, like I'd finally taken out trash that had been rotting in the corners for months. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, waiting for sunrise, waiting for Sylvie to come home and find her new reality. She walked in at 7:30, using her key like nothing had changed. She was wearing the same red coat, but her hair was messed up and her makeup was smudged. The walk of shame, except she didn't look ashamed. "Holden?" she called, probably expecting me to be upstairs getting ready for work like always. "We need to talk." She found me in the kitchen, sitting calmly with my coffee and the morning paper spread out in front of me. "Good morning," I said, not looking up from the sports section. "How was your business dinner?" "Listen, about yesterday," she started, then stopped. Her eyes had found the suitcases by the front door. "What's this?" "Your bags are packed," I said, still reading the paper. "The divorce papers are on the table. You should probably sign them." She stared at me like I'd started speaking Chinese. "What are you talking about?" "Holden, if this is about yesterday, I can explain." "Explain what? That you've been having an affair with Derrick Lorne for the past 4 months? That you've been using our joint accounts to pay for hotel rooms? That you've been lying about business trips while moving your stuff to his place?" Her face went pale, then flushed red. "You were spying on me?" I was paying attention. Finally. I folded the paper and looked at her directly. You told me to get a divorce. I'm taking your advice. She sat down across from me, trying to regain control of the conversation. This was Sylvie's specialty, turning every confrontation into a negotiation she could win. Holden, let's be adults about this. Yes, I've been seeing Derrick, but it's not what you think. It's complicated. He's going through a difficult time with his wife, and I've been providing emotional support. Emotional support. I nodded thoughtfully. Is that what they're calling it now? Don't be crude. This doesn't have to be ugly. We can work something out that's fair to both of us. I stood up and walked to the counter, refilling my coffee cup. Fair. Like it was fair when you humiliated me at the airport yesterday? Like it was fair when you posted pictures of your dates on social media? Like it was fair when you spent our anniversary weekend with him in Vancouver? She flinched at that last one. She'd thought I didn't know about Vancouver. I want half of everything, she said, switching tactics. The house, your retirement accounts, your stock options. I've been supporting your career for 8 years. Supporting my career? I laughed, and the sound surprised both of us. Sylvie, you've never shown the slightest interest in my work. You can't even remember the name of my company. I've been the perfect corporate wife. You've been a perfect corporate wife to Derrick, taking him to industry events, introducing him to contacts, building his business relationships, using information from my company to help him land contracts. That stopped her cold. She hadn't realized I'd figured out that part yet. Derrick's company has been underbidding us on 3 major contracts this year. Contracts you knew about because I mentioned them at home. Contracts where he somehow knew exactly what to propose and what we were charging. I walked back to the table and sat down, feeling calmer than I had in months. So, here's what's going to happen. You're going to take your bags and leave. You're going to sign the divorce papers. And you're going to do it quietly, without drama. Because if you don't, I'm going to send everything I found to your boss, your clients, and Derrick's wife. You wouldn't dare. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. I've already written the emails. All I have to do is hit send. She stared at the phone, then at me, like she was seeing me for the first time. This isn't you, Holden. You're not vindictive. You're not cruel. You're right, I said. I wasn't. But you taught me to be. She tried one more angle, leaning forward with tears starting to form in her eyes, the tears that had worked so many times before. We can fix this. We can go back to counseling. Dr. Peterson said a lot of things, like how important honesty is in a relationship, like how both partners need to be committed to change. I stood up again, suddenly tired of the whole conversation. Your bags are packed, Sylvie. Get out. She sat there for another minute, probably running through her remaining options. But there weren't any. For the first time in her life, she'd miscalculated, and there was no talking her way out of it. She stood up slowly, her face cycling through emotions like a slot machine. Anger, fear, calculation, and finally something I'd never seen from her before: uncertainty. Fine, she said, trying to salvage some dignity. But this isn't over. You can't just throw away 8 years. I'm not throwing them away. You already did that. She walked to the front door, grabbed the handle of the first suitcase, then turned back. You'll regret this, Holden. When you're sitting alone in this house, eating frozen dinners and watching TV by yourself, you'll remember what you gave up. I looked around the kitchen, at the clean counters and the organized space, at the morning light streaming through windows that weren't blocked by her clutter. I'll take my chances. She left, struggling with the 3 suitcases and her wounded pride. I watched through the front window as she loaded them into her BMW, her movements sharp and angry. She sat in the car for a few minutes, probably calling Derrick or her lawyer or her mother. Then she drove away, and the house was quiet. I finished my coffee, washed the cup, and got ready for work. Just like any other day, except everything had changed. The game had begun, and for the first time in 8 years, I was playing to win. The next morning brought the kind of clarity that only comes after you've finally stopped lying to yourself. I sat in my home office, surrounded by 3 monitors and the quiet hum of expensive equipment, watching Sylvie's digital life unravel in real time. She'd tried to log into our joint accounts at 6 a.m. Failed, obviously. Then she'd attempted to access our shared cloud storage, our streaming services, even our grocery delivery app. Each failed login sent me a notification, like little digital screams of frustration. My phone rang at 7:15. Sylvie's number, which I'd blocked on my personal phone but not on my work line. Smart girl, figuring out the workaround. "Holden, you need to restore my access to our accounts immediately," she said without preamble. "I have bills to pay, responsibilities." "Your responsibilities are no longer my problem. This is childish. I need my phone service restored. I have clients." "Then I suggest you set up your own account. Adult people usually handle their own bills." The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if she'd hung up. Then, "Fine. But I'm coming by the house this afternoon to get the rest of my things." "No, you're not. It's still my house too until the divorce is final." "Check your email," I said, and hung up. I'd sent her the restraining order I'd filed that morning. Nothing dramatic, just a standard protective order citing harassment and emotional distress. Easy to get when you had documented evidence of someone publicly humiliating you and conducting an affair with your financial information. The beauty of it was that Sylvie couldn't contest it without admitting to the affair in court records. Public records that her PR clients might find interesting. My desk phone rang again immediately. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. "Holden Ravell? This is Janet Morrison from Morrison, Klein & Associates. I represent Sylvie Norren." Already had a lawyer. That was fast, even for Sylvie. "Ms. Morrison, I assume you're calling about the divorce proceedings?" "Mr. Ravell, my client is willing to negotiate a fair settlement, but these punitive actions you've taken, freezing accounts, filing restraining orders, they're not conducive to an amicable resolution." "Amicable?" I leaned back in my chair, watching rain streak down my office window. "Your client conducted a 4-month affair, used marital assets to fund it, and shared confidential business information with her lover. Exactly which part of that was amicable? My client disputes those allegations, then she can dispute them in court, along with the evidence I'll be presenting." I hung up and got back to work. Real work, the kind that paid my salary and kept my mind occupied. Software architecture for a client in Portland, debugging code, reviewing security protocols. The familiar rhythm of logical problems with logical solutions. At lunch, I walked down to Pike Place Market, partly for the fresh air and partly to test my new reality. For 8 years, I'd avoided the market on weekdays because Sylvie said it was too touristy and beneath us. Apparently, I'd been missing out. I bought coffee from a vendor who remembered my order after one visit, picked up fresh salmon from a fishmonger who threw it like a football, and browsed bookstores without someone checking their watch and sighing dramatically. On the way back to the office, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Marla. Can we talk?" Marla Givens, Sylvie's best friend since college. They'd been inseparable for 15 years, sharing everything from clothes to secrets to apparently moral flexibility. I texted back, "Nothing to discuss. It's about Sylvie. There are things you don't know." That was interesting. I called the number. "Holden?" Marla's voice was tentative, like she wasn't sure I'd actually call. "What things don't I know, Marla? Can we meet somewhere? I don't want to do this over the phone." We agreed on a coffee shop in Belltown, neutral territory. I arrived first and claimed a corner table where I could see the entrance. Old habits from too many business negotiations. Marla walked in 10 minutes later, looking nervous. She'd always been the more sensible of Sylvie's friends, the one with an actual job and realistic expectations about life. Married to an accountant, 2 kids, lived in a modest house in Edmonds instead of demanding a downtown condo. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, sliding into the opposite chair. "I wasn't sure you would. You said there were things I didn't know. I'm listening." She ordered a latte, stalling for time. When it arrived, she wrapped her hands around the cup like it was an anchor. "Sylvie's been planning this for months," she said finally. "The affair, the divorce, all of it. She's been moving money into private accounts, copying your business files, even researching your stock options and retirement benefits." I kept my expression neutral, but inside, pieces were clicking into place. "How do you know this?" "Because she told me. She thought it was clever, getting everything lined up before you suspected anything. She called it her exit strategy." "And you didn't think to warn me?" Marla flushed red. "I told her it was wrong. I told her she should just ask for a divorce if she was unhappy. But she said you'd never agree to a fair split, that she'd have to take what she deserved." What she deserved. Her words, not mine. Marla leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Holden, she's been feeding information to Derrick about your company's bids. She's been photographing documents, recording conversations when you talked about work at home. That explained how Derrick's company had been undercutting us so precisely. They weren't just guessing at our prices. They had our actual proposals." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because what she did yesterday was cruel. The airport thing. The public humiliation. That wasn't part of any plan. That was just her being vicious." Marla's voice cracked slightly, and because she asked me to lie for her, to provide an alibi for last weekend when she was with Derrick in Vancouver, she wanted me to tell you we were at a spa retreat together. "But you didn't." "No, I didn't. But I didn't tell you the truth either, and I should have." She reached into her purse and pulled out a flash drive. "This has copies of everything she showed me. Bank statements, emails, photos, business documents. I made copies because I was worried about what she was planning." I took the flash drive, feeling its weight. Such a small thing to hold so much destruction. "There's something else," Marla said. "She's planning to claim you were abusive. Emotionally, not physically, but still. She's been documenting things, taking them out of context, building a case that you were controlling and manipulative." Was I? The question surprised both of us. Marla studied my face for a moment. "No," she said finally. "You were patient, maybe too patient. You let her get away with things that would have ended most marriages years ago." She stood up, leaving her latte barely touched. "I'm sorry, Holden. I should have said something sooner." After she left, I sat in the coffee shop for another hour, thinking. Sylvie had been planning this for months, treating our marriage like a business deal she was preparing to abandon. The affair wasn't a moment of weakness, or a marriage gone wrong. It was a calculated strategy. That changed things. I drove back to the office and called a meeting with our security team. As CTO, I had legitimate concerns about information leaks, especially given our recent losses to competitors. "I need a complete audit of our proposal system," I told them. "Someone's been leaking our bids to Derrick Lorne's company. I want to know how, when, and what we can do about it." The audit took 3 hours and confirmed what I already knew. Someone with access to our internal systems had been downloading proposal documents, financial projections, and client information. The digital trail led back to my home IP address, specifically to times when I was at work and Sylvie was home alone. "Should we involve law enforcement?" asked Jenny, our head of security. "Not yet. Let me handle this internally first." I spent the rest of the afternoon documenting everything. The leaked information, the pattern of access, the correlation between Sylvie's business trips and Derrick's successful bids. By 5 o'clock, I had enough evidence to destroy both of their careers. But I didn't want to destroy them quickly. Quick destruction was forgettable, easy to recover from. I wanted something more permanent. I wanted them to ruin themselves. That evening, I created a series of fake email accounts and began a careful campaign. Nothing illegal, nothing that could be traced back to me. Just information, strategically distributed to the right people at the right times. Derrick's wife received an anonymous tip about his business trips with Sylvie, along with hotel receipts and restaurant charges. She was a prominent figure in Seattle's charity circuit, the kind of woman who valued her reputation above everything else. Sylvie's biggest client, a tech startup preparing for an IPO, received information about her relationship with their competitor's consultant. Corporate clients tended to be sensitive about conflicts of interest. The Washington State Bar Association received a complaint about Janet Morrison representing a client in corporate espionage. Lawyers hated having their ethics questioned, even when the complaints were ultimately unfounded. Each email was carefully crafted, professionally written, and backed up with just enough evidence to be credible without being overwhelming. I wasn't trying to convince anyone of anything. I was just raising questions and letting other people draw their own conclusions. By midnight, I'd planted seeds that would grow into problems for weeks to come. Then I went to bed in my quiet house, in my clean bedroom, and slept better than I had in months. The next morning brought the first results. Derrick's wife had apparently confronted him at breakfast because he called me at 7 a.m., his voice tight with controlled rage. "I don't know what game you're playing, Ravell, but it ends now." "I'm sorry. Do we know each other? Oh, wait. You're the guy who's been stealing my business proposals through my wife. How's that working out for you?" "You can't prove anything." "I don't have to prove anything. I just have to ask questions. Like why your company's bids have been so precisely calibrated to undercut ours. Like why your success rate improved dramatically right around the time you started your affair with my wife." The silence stretched long enough that I thought he might have hung up. "What do you want?" he said finally. "I want you to confess to your wife and your business partners. I want you to admit that you've been using stolen information to win contracts, and I want you to do it publicly." "That's insane. I'd lose everything." "You're going to lose everything anyway. This way, you get to keep some dignity." He hung up, but I knew he'd call back. Men like Derrick always called back when they realized they were cornered. My office phone rang an hour later. Janet Morrison again, but this time her tone was different. "Mr. Ravell, I think we may have gotten off on the wrong foot yesterday." "Ms. Morrison, I think you may be right. My client is prepared to be more reasonable about the settlement terms. She's willing to waive her claim to your retirement accounts in exchange for a quick, quiet divorce. How generous of her. She's also prepared to sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding any business information she may have inadvertently encountered during your marriage." Inadvertently. I had to admire the lawyer's choice of words. "Ms. Morrison, your client is in no position to negotiate. She's facing potential criminal charges for corporate espionage. Her career is about to implode, and her boyfriend is probably going to throw her under the bus to save his own marriage." "Mr. Ravell, tell your client that she has 24 hours to sign the divorce papers as written. After that, I start making phone calls to reporters. Seattle's a small town when it comes to business scandals." I hung up and got back to work. Real work, the kind that didn't involve revenge or strategy or careful manipulation. Just clean code and logical problems and solutions that actually worked. But in the back of my mind, I was already planning the next phase. Sylvie and Derrick thought they were dealing with the same patient, accommodating man who'd spent 8 years avoiding conflict. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The first crack in Sylvie's facade appeared on Instagram at 2:47 p.m. on a Thursday. I know the exact time because I'd been monitoring her social media accounts, not through hacking, just through the simple expedient of never having unfriended her. She'd always been careless about privacy settings. The photo showed her and Derrick at some upscale restaurant in Bellevue, both of them trying too hard to look happy. The caption read, "Sometimes the best partnerships grow into something more. New beginnings, authentic life, no regrets." Within an hour, the comments section became a battlefield. "Isn't this the married guy from the Chamber of Commerce?" wrote someone named Jennifer Seattle. "Thought you were married to that tech guy? asked another. But the comment that really stung came from someone I recognized, Patricia Hendricks, wife of one of Sylvie's biggest clients. Interesting timing on this announcement, Sylvie. We should talk. I screenshot everything before Sylvie could delete it, but she didn't delete it. That was her first mistake. She tried to control the narrative instead, posting a long comment about following your heart and not living a lie for other people's comfort. Her second mistake was underestimating how quickly gossip travels in Seattle's business community. By Friday morning, 3 of her clients had called emergency meetings. By Friday afternoon, 2 of them had terminated their contracts. By Monday, the story had reached the Seattle Business Journal, who ran a small item about relationship complications affecting local PR firms. Marla called me Tuesday morning, her voice tight with stress. "Sylvie's losing her mind," she said. "She thinks you're orchestrating some kind of campaign against her." Am I? Are you? I was in my office, watching rain streak down the windows while reviewing code for a client in Portland. Normal work, the kind that paid my salary and didn't require psychological warfare. I haven't done anything illegal, Marla. I haven't lied about anything. I haven't even spoken to any reporters. But you're not exactly discouraging the speculation. Why would I? She chose to make her private life public. She chose to post photos of her affair on social media. She chose to announce her new beginning before our divorce was even final. Marla sighed. She wants to meet with you, to work something out. We tried working something out. She told me to get a divorce. Holden, tell her to call her lawyer. That's what she's paying her for. I hung up and got back to work, but my concentration was broken. Not by guilt or regret, but by anticipation. Sylvie was about to make her next move, and I wanted to be ready for it. The move came that afternoon, in the form of a carefully crafted email to my entire company. Somehow, she'd gotten hold of our internal directory, probably from one of those business documents she'd been photographing. The subject line read, "Concerns about employee conduct." The email itself was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive manipulation. She didn't accuse me of anything specific, just raised concerns about my recent behavior and suggested that my personal problems might be affecting my professional judgment. She mentioned the harassment I'd been subjecting her to, the vindictive actions I'd taken, and her fear about what I might do next. She'd sent it to everyone, my boss, my coworkers, our clients, even our security team. It was designed to make me look unstable, dangerous, and potentially liable. It was also the stupidest thing she could have done. My boss, David Chen, called me into his office within an hour. David was a practical man who'd built his company from 3 employees to over 200. He didn't have time for drama, but he also didn't make decisions without facts. "Holden, I got an interesting email this afternoon." "I saw it too. Want to tell me what's going on?" I'd been preparing for this conversation since Monday. I pulled out a folder and placed it on his desk. My wife has been conducting an affair with Derrick Lorne from Pinnacle Consulting. During the course of that affair, she's been photographing confidential business documents and sharing them with him. His company has used that information to underbid us on at least 6 major contracts this year. David opened the folder and started reading. Bank records showing payments to hotels where Sylvie and Derrick had stayed, email receipts from file-sharing services. Most damning of all, a side-by-side comparison of our proposals and Pinnacle's winning bids, showing pricing that was consistently 1 to 2% below ours. "This is corporate espionage," David said finally. "Yes, it is." "Why didn't you bring this to me sooner?" "Because it was my wife doing it. I hoped I could resolve it privately, but she's chosen to escalate things." David closed the folder and leaned back in his chair. "What do you want to do about this?" "I want to protect the company. If that means involving law enforcement, I'm prepared to do that. If it means pursuing civil remedies, I'm prepared for that too." "And personally?" Personally, I want her out of my life, but she seems determined to make that as difficult as possible. David nodded slowly. I'll have our legal team review this. In the meantime, I think we should send a response to her email, something that makes it clear we stand behind our employees and don't appreciate outside interference. The response went out an hour later, copied to everyone who'd received Sylvie's original message. It was professionally written but unmistakably clear. The company had investigated her allegations, found them without merit, and would be pursuing legal action against anyone who had compromised their confidential information. It also mentioned that they had substantial evidence of corporate espionage and would be cooperating fully with law enforcement in their investigation. Sylvie called me 15 minutes after the email went out, her voice shaking with rage. "You bastard! You're trying to destroy me." "I'm trying to protect my company from industrial espionage. If that destroys you, maybe you should have thought about that before you started stealing my business documents." "I never stole anything." "Sylvie, I have photos of you photographing confidential files. I have records of you accessing our systems from home. I have bank statements showing payments to file-sharing services on the same days you were with Derrick." The silence stretched so long, I thought she might have hung up. "What do you want?" she said finally. "I want you to sign the divorce papers. I want you to disappear from my life, and I want you to stop trying to damage my reputation." "Fine, but I want half of everything. The house, your stock options, your retirement accounts. You'll get what the law entitles you to, nothing more. I'll fight you on this." "Good luck with that. Your lawyer's about to have her own problems." That was true. The Washington State Bar Association had opened an investigation into Janet Morrison's representation of Sylvie, based on the anonymous complaint about her involvement in corporate espionage. It wouldn't amount to anything serious, but it would tie up Morrison's time and attention for weeks. Sylvie hung up, but the damage was already spreading beyond our personal war. Derrick's wife had filed for divorce, citing adultery and demanding half of his business assets. His company was facing questions from clients about their bidding practices. The Seattle Business Journal was sniffing around, asking questions about competitive intelligence in the consulting industry. Most satisfying of all, Sylvie's remaining clients were quietly distancing themselves. Nobody wanted to be associated with someone who might have access to their competitors' information. That weekend, I decided to test my new freedom. I drove up to Vancouver for no particular reason except that I could. No schedule to check, no one to consult, no negotiations about restaurants or hotels or activities. I stayed at a small hotel downtown, ate at places I'd never heard of, and walked around the city without any agenda beyond curiosity. It was the first spontaneous thing I'd done in years. On Sunday afternoon, I was sitting in a coffee shop near Stanley Park when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet me at Pike Place Market, main entrance, 6 p.m. tomorrow. Come alone. D." "Derrick, this should be interesting." I texted back, "See you there." The market was crowded at 6 p.m. on a Monday, full of tourists and commuters and vendors closing up their stalls. I spotted Derrick near the main entrance, looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. He'd lost weight since I'd last seen him, and his face had the gray pallor of a man who wasn't sleeping well. "Ravell." He nodded curtly as I approached. "Lorne, you look terrible." "Thanks to you." We walked toward the waterfront, away from the crowds. Derrick kept checking over his shoulder like he expected to be followed. "My wife filed for divorce," he said. "I heard. Sorry for your loss. My business partners are asking questions about our bidding practices. They should be. You've been cheating. And Sylvie's career is finished. She's lost most of her clients, her reputation is destroyed, and she's facing potential criminal charges." Sounds like consequences. We stopped at a railing overlooking Elliott Bay. The sun was setting behind the Olympics, painting the water gold and red. It was beautiful, the kind of scene that should have been romantic if I'd been there with someone I cared about. "What do you want?" Derrick asked. "I want you to confess." To what? To everything. The affair, the stolen information, the rigged bids. I want you to admit it publicly, apologize to your wife, and make restitution to my company." Derrick laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're insane if you think I'm going to destroy myself to satisfy your revenge fantasy. You're already destroyed. Your wife knows about the affair. Your business partners suspect you've been cheating. Your reputation in the industry is shot. The only question is whether you go down with some dignity or get dragged down fighting. And if I confess, what then? Then maybe you get to keep some piece of your life. Maybe your wife doesn't take everything in the divorce. Maybe your business partners let you resign instead of firing you for cause." Derrick stared out at the water, his hands gripping the railing. "This isn't about justice. This is about you getting revenge because your wife didn't want to be married to a boring tech nerd." "You're right," I said. "It's not about justice. It's about consequences. For 8 years, I watched Sylvie lie and manipulate and cheat without facing any real consequences. For months, I watched you steal my company's information without facing any consequences. Now you are. And you think that makes you the good guy in this story?" I considered that question seriously. "No. I think it makes me the guy who finally stopped being a victim." Derrick turned away from the railing, his face hard with anger and desperation. "You want a confession? Fine. But you're not going to like what you hear. Try me. Sylvie came to me. She approached me at that Chamber of Commerce mixer last year, started flirting, started suggesting we could help each other. She's the one who offered to share your company's information in exchange for a cut of our increased profits. That was new information, and it hit harder than I'd expected. I'd assumed the espionage was a byproduct of the affair, not the cause of it. She seduced me to get access to my business connections," Derrick continued. "She used me just like she used you. The only difference is that I figured it out sooner. Is that supposed to make me feel sorry for you? It's supposed to make you realize that we're both victims here. She played us against each other, used us both to get what she wanted." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something I hadn't expected. Fear, not just of consequences, but of Sylvie herself. "What aren't you telling me?" I asked. Derrick glanced around again, then leaned closer. "She's not done. She's planning something else, something bigger. She asked me to help her access your personal accounts, your investment portfolio, even your company's intellectual property." "And?" I said no. That's when she got vicious, started threatening to tell my wife about the affair unless I cooperated. When I still refused, she made good on the threat. "So she destroyed your marriage because you wouldn't help her steal from me?" "She destroyed my marriage because I was no longer useful to her." We stood in silence for a moment, watching ferries cross the darkening bay. I was processing this new version of events, trying to fit it into the story I'd been telling myself. "What exactly is she planning?" I asked. "I don't know all the details, but she's been asking questions about your company's security protocols, your personal banking, your investment accounts. She's also been researching identity theft, corporate fraud, things like that. And you're telling me this because? Because I'm tired of being her puppet, and because if she succeeds in whatever she's planning, she won't need either of us anymore." Derrick reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "This is everything I know about what she's been planning. Emails, documents, recorded conversations. Consider it my confession." I took the envelope, feeling its weight. "Why should I trust you?" "Because we both want the same thing now. We want her stopped." He walked away into the crowd, leaving me alone with the envelope and a lot of new questions. I'd thought I understood the game we were playing, but apparently there were rules I didn't know about. I drove home through the Seattle evening, thinking about consequences and victims and the difference between justice and revenge. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear thunder rolling in from the Pacific. The storm was just getting started. The envelope Derrick gave me contained enough evidence to put Sylvie in prison for 10 years. Bank records showing payments from offshore accounts. Email conversations about liquidating assets, and transferring holdings. Most disturbing of all, a recorded phone conversation where she discussed hiring someone to create problems for me at work. I sat in my kitchen at midnight, spreading the documents across the table like pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to solve. This wasn't the woman I'd married, the ambitious but ultimately harmless PR executive who complained about restaurant service and bought too many shoes. This was someone else entirely, someone calculating and dangerous. My phone buzzed with a text from Marla. "Sylvie's asking about your schedule, wants to know when you're traveling for work. I told her I don't know, but thought you should be aware." I texted back, "Thanks for the warning." Then I did something I'd never done in my adult life. I called in sick to work and spent the day making my house secure. New locks, security cameras, a safe for important documents. I also moved most of my liquid assets to accounts at different banks, ones Sylvie had never heard of. By evening, I felt like I was preparing for a siege. The attack came Tuesday morning, but not in the way I'd expected. Instead of breaking into my house or sabotaging my car, Sylvie went after my professional reputation with surgical precision. She'd somehow obtained copies of my personal emails, probably from our shared cloud account before I'd locked her out, and selectively edited them to make me look unstable. A joke about making my ex-wife disappear became evidence of violent tendencies. A complaint about a difficult client became proof of unprofessional behavior. She sent these edited emails to my company's board of directors, our biggest clients, and several local reporters. The subject line read, "Concerning behavior from Holden Ravell, public safety issue." My boss called me at 7 a.m., his voice tight with concern. "Holden, we need to talk, now." I was in his office 20 minutes later, still wearing yesterday's clothes because I'd been up all night monitoring my security cameras. "This is getting out of hand," David said, showing me printouts of Sylvie's emails. "I know these are taken out of context, but our board is nervous. We can't have this kind of controversy affecting our client relationships." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you need to take a leave of absence until this gets resolved. Paid leave, nothing punitive, just until the situation calms down." I stared at the emails, seeing my own words twisted into something ugly and threatening. She's trying to destroy my career. And she's succeeding. The question is, what are we going to do about it? I pulled out my own folder, the one containing Derrick's evidence and my own documentation of Sylvie's activities. "We're going to stop playing defense and start playing offense." David reviewed the documents, his expression growing darker with each page. "This is criminal fraud." "Yes, it is. Identity theft, corporate espionage, conspiracy. She's looking at serious prison time if we prosecute." "I know. So why haven't you gone to the police?" That was the question I'd been avoiding for days. The honest answer was that part of me still remembered the woman I'd married, the one who'd laughed at my jokes and cried during romantic movies, the one who'd been ambitious and selfish but not actually evil. But that woman was gone, if she'd ever really existed. "I'll go to the police today," I said. "Good. And Holden, watch your back. If she's desperate enough to forge evidence against you, she's desperate enough to try other things." I spent the afternoon at the Seattle Police Department, filing reports and providing evidence. The detective assigned to the case, a tired-looking woman named Sarah Martinez, reviewed everything with professional skepticism. "This is complex," she said finally. "Corporate espionage, identity theft, harassment. We're talking about multiple felonies across several jurisdictions. It's going to take time to build a case." "How much time?" "Weeks, maybe months. In the meantime, I'd recommend staying away from your ex-wife and avoiding any actions that could be construed as retaliation." "What if she escalates things?" "Then you call us immediately. Don't try to handle it yourself." I left the police station feeling frustrated and exposed. Sylvie was out there somewhere, planning her next move, while I was supposed to sit quietly and wait for the legal system to protect me. That evening, I got a call from my lawyer, not the divorce attorney, but the criminal defense lawyer I'd retained after seeing Derrick's evidence. Holden, we have a problem. Your ex-wife has filed a complaint against you with the district attorney's office. She's claiming you've been stalking her, threatening her, and using your technical skills to hack her accounts. That's insane. I haven't even spoken to her in weeks. She has evidence, screenshots of threatening messages supposedly from your accounts, records of login attempts to her email, even photos of you allegedly following her. All fabricated. I believe you, but we need to prove it. Can you account for your whereabouts for the past week? I could, thanks to the security cameras I'd installed and the detailed logs my phone kept of my location. But the fact that I needed an alibi for my own life was surreal. This is escalating beyond a simple divorce, my lawyer continued. She's trying to get you arrested, possibly to gain leverage in the property settlement, or just to destroy your life out of spite. So what do? We fight back, aggressively. I'm going to file our own complaint, presenting all the evidence of her actual crimes. We're also going to seek an emergency restraining order to prevent her from contacting your employer, your clients, or anyone else in your professional network. After I hung up, I poured myself a drink and sat in my living room, surrounded by the security monitors that now dominated one wall. I could see every approach to my house, every window, every door. I'd turned my home into a fortress, and I was the prisoner inside it. My phone rang at 11 p.m. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. Hello, Holden. Sylvie's voice was calm, almost friendly. This conversation is being recorded. I'm sure it is. You always were thorough about documentation. What do you want, Sylvie? I want to make a deal. I don't make deals with criminals. She laughed, and the sound was genuinely amused. Criminals? Holden, you're the one who's been stalking me, threatening me, trying to destroy my life. I'm just defending myself. By fabricating evidence and filing false police reports? By using every tool available to protect myself from a dangerous ex-husband who can't accept that his wife left him for a better man. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. This wasn't anger or desperation. This was someone who genuinely believed she was the victim in this situation. Here's my offer, she continued. You give me half of everything. The house, your stock options, your retirement accounts, everything. And I'll disappear from your life. The criminal complaints go away, the media attention stops, and you can go back to your boring little existence. And if I refuse, then I keep escalating. More complaints to the police, more evidence of your stalking and harassment, more problems at work. I'll make your life so miserable that half of everything will seem like a bargain. You're forgetting something, Sylvie. What's that? I have evidence of your actual crimes. Corporate espionage, fraud, conspiracy. You're looking at prison time. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're the one with legal problems. You're the one who's been suspended from work. You're the one who needs a criminal defense attorney. She was right, and we both knew it. Somehow, she'd managed to turn the situation around, making herself look like the victim while I appeared to be the aggressor. Think about my offer, Holden. You have 24 hours to decide. She hung up, leaving me alone with the sound of rain against the windows and the green glow of security monitors showing an empty street. I spent the night researching Sylvie's recent activities, using techniques I'd learned in my cybersecurity work. Not hacking, I wasn't stupid enough to give her real evidence against me, but open-source intelligence gathering, social media, public records, business databases. What I found was disturbing. She'd been busy over the past month, establishing new identities, opening bank accounts, even creating fake social media profiles to support her version of events. She'd also been in contact with several private investigators, though I couldn't determine what she'd hired them to do. Most troubling of all, she'd been researching me with the thoroughness of someone planning a military campaign. My work history, my financial records, my family relationships, even my medical records from our shared insurance policy. She knew everything about me, while I was just beginning to understand what she'd become. By morning, I'd made my decision. I wasn't going to negotiate with someone who'd turned my life into a war zone. I wasn't going to pay ransom to someone who'd already stolen from me. I was going to end this one way or another. I called my lawyer first, then Detective Martinez, then my boss. I told them all the same thing. I was done being reactive. It was time to take the offensive. The final battle was coming, and I intended to win it. The opportunity came from an unexpected source. Derrick's business partner, a man named Roger Steinberg, who'd apparently grown tired of the scandal affecting their company's reputation. He called me on a Thursday morning with a proposition. "Mr. Ravell, I understand you and my business partner have had some difficulties. That's one way to put it. I'm hosting a corporate networking event next week, a charity gala for the Seattle Children's Hospital. Derrick will be there, along with most of the city's business community. I thought you might be interested in attending." I was immediately suspicious. Why would you want me there? Because this situation has gone on long enough. It's affecting our business, our reputation, and our ability to serve our clients. I think it's time for everyone involved to face the consequences of their actions. What kind of consequences? The kind that happen when the truth comes out in front of people who matter. Roger sent me an invitation that afternoon, along with a detailed schedule of events. The gala would be held at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel, the same place where Sylvie had stayed during her first business trip with Derrick. The irony was too perfect to ignore. I spent the weekend preparing, but not in the way someone normally prepares for a charity event. I created a multimedia presentation, complete with audio recordings, financial documents, and a timeline of events that told the complete story of Sylvie and Derrick's conspiracy. I also did something I'd never done before. I hired my own private investigator, a former Seattle police detective named Mike Torres, who specialized in corporate fraud cases. "I need you to serve some papers at the gala," I told him, "and I need you to document everything that happens." "What kind of papers?" I handed him a folder containing subpoenas for both Sylvie and Derrick, along with a civil lawsuit seeking damages for corporate espionage and fraud. I'd also obtained a restraining order requiring Sylvie to stop contacting my employer and clients. "This is going to be messy," Torres said after reviewing the documents. "That's the point." The gala was scheduled for Saturday evening, black tie optional, with cocktails at 6 and dinner at 7. I arrived early, dressed in my best suit and carrying a small briefcase containing backup copies of all my evidence. The ballroom was elegant in that generic hotel way, with round tables arranged around a small stage where the evening speakers would make their presentations. I recognized most of the attendees, Seattle's business elite, the kind of people who valued reputation above almost everything else. Sylvie arrived at 6:30, stunning in a red dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. She was alone, which surprised me until I realized that Derrick's wife had probably forbidden him from bringing his mistress to a public event. She spotted me immediately and made her way across the room with the confidence of someone who thought she still controlled the situation. "Holden," she said, her voice warm and friendly for the benefit of anyone listening. "I'm surprised to see you here. I'm full of surprises these days." "Are you?" She moved closer, lowering her voice. "Because I thought we had an understanding about keeping our personal problems private." "We did. Then you decided to involve my employer, the police, and half the business community in Seattle." Her smile never wavered, but her eyes went cold. "You brought this on yourself. All you had to do was be reasonable." "Reasonable like committing corporate espionage? Reasonable like filing false police reports? Reasonable like trying to steal my company's intellectual property?" "I have no idea what you're talking about." Derrick appeared at her elbow, looking nervous in an expensive tuxedo. "Ravell, I didn't expect to see you here. Roger invited me. Something about facing consequences. Look, we don't want any trouble." "Then you shouldn't have started any." The dinner bell chimed, and people began moving toward their assigned tables. I'd been seated at table 12 near the back of the room, but with a clear view of the stage. Sylvie and Derrick were at table 3, close to the front with the other major donors. During the appetizer course, I excused myself and walked to the hotel's business center, where I'd arranged to have my presentation loaded onto their audio-visual system. The hotel's technical staff had been very cooperative once I'd explained that I was exposing corporate fraud at their event. I returned to the dining room just as the evening's program was beginning. The hospital's CEO spoke about their mission, followed by a presentation about their new pediatric wing. Then Roger Steinberg took the stage to thank the evening's sponsors. "Before we conclude," he said, "I'd like to address a situation that's been affecting our business community. Corporate espionage and fraud are serious crimes that undermine trust and fair competition. Tonight, we have an opportunity to set the record straight." He gestured toward me. "Mr. Holden Ravell has some information to share with us." The room went quiet as I walked to the stage, my footsteps echoing on the marble floor. I could feel hundreds of eyes on me, including Sylvie's, which were wide with shock and growing panic. "Good evening," I said into the microphone. "My name is Holden Ravell, and I'm here to tell you about corporate espionage, identity theft, and fraud in Seattle's business community." I clicked the remote, and the first slide appeared on the screen behind me, a timeline showing Sylvie's affair with Derrick alongside my company's lost contracts. For the past 8 months, confidential information from my company has been stolen and shared with our competitors. Tonight, I'm going to show you exactly how that happened and who was responsible. Sylvie stood up from her table, her face flushed with anger. "This is harassment. He's obsessed with me because I left him." "Ma'am, please sit down," Roger said firmly. "Mr. Ravell has the floor." I clicked to the next slide, bank records showing payments between Sylvie and Derrick's company. The theft was systematic and profitable. My ex-wife photographed confidential documents, copied computer files, and recorded private conversations about business matters. She then shared this information with Derrick Lorne in exchange for money and personal favors. The room was completely silent now, except for the sound of people shifting in their chairs. I could see phones coming out as people began recording the presentation. "The evidence is extensive," I continued, clicking through slides showing email conversations, hotel receipts, and financial transfers. Bank records, recorded phone calls, and witness statements all confirm the same pattern of criminal behavior. Derrick stood up, his face pale. "This is defamation. I'll sue you for every penny you have." "Actually, you won't," I said, and nodded toward Mike Torres, who was standing near the back of the room. Torres walked forward, carrying a folder of legal documents. "Derrick Lorne and Sylvie Norren, you're being served with subpoenas for a federal investigation into corporate espionage and fraud." The room erupted in whispers and gasps as Torres handed them the papers. Sylvie tried to refuse hers, but Torres simply placed it on her table and announced loudly, "You've been served." I clicked to the final slide, a photo of Sylvie and Derrick at the airport, the day this had all started. "The theft of corporate information is a federal crime," I said, "but what makes this case particularly disturbing is the personal betrayal involved. These people didn't just steal from my company, they stole from my marriage, my trust, and my life." Sylvie was crying now, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of rage and humiliation. "You bastard!" she screamed, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You vindictive, pathetic bastard!" She threw her wine glass at the stage, missing me, but shattering against the screen behind me. Security guards immediately moved toward her table. "Ma'am, you need to leave," one of them said. "I'm not going anywhere. This is all lies. He's the criminal here." But the damage was done. The entire Seattle business community had just watched her throw a tantrum and call me names while I calmly presented evidence of her crimes. Whatever sympathy she might have had evaporated in that moment. Derrick tried to salvage the situation, standing up and attempting to address the room. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a personal dispute that has nothing to do with— Sit down, Derrick, Roger said coldly. You've embarrassed this company enough. Security escorted both Sylvie and Derrick from the ballroom while I finished my presentation with contact information for the FBI's Corporate Crime Division and an offer to provide additional evidence to anyone who might have been affected by their activities. The applause when I finished was scattered and uncertain, but it was applause. More importantly, I could see people at various tables taking notes, making phone calls, and having intense conversations. By Monday morning, the story was all over the local business press. By Tuesday, Sylvie had been fired from her remaining clients. By Wednesday, Derrick's company had announced his resignation and launched an internal investigation into their bidding practices. But the real victory came Thursday afternoon, when Detective Martinez called with an update. "We've made arrests," she said. "Your ex-wife and Derrick Lorne are both in custody on federal charges: corporate espionage, wire fraud, conspiracy. They're looking at serious prison time." I should have felt satisfied, vindicated, triumphant. Instead, I felt empty. 8 years of marriage, reduced to criminal charges and newspaper headlines. "There's something else," Martinez continued. "During the arrest, your ex-wife made some threats against you. We're taking them seriously." "What kind of threats?" "The kind that suggest you should be very careful for the next few weeks. Maybe consider staying somewhere else, varying your routine, that sort of thing." I spent that evening in a hotel room, looking out at the Seattle skyline and thinking about consequences. Sylvie and Derrick were facing prison. Their careers were destroyed, their reputations ruined, their personal relationships shattered. I'd won. Completely, decisively, publicly. So why did I feel like I'd lost something important in the process? The storm hit Seattle on a Tuesday night in November, the kind of Pacific Northwest tempest that turns the city into a noir film. I was in my hotel room watching rain streak down the windows while CNN droned in the background when my phone rang. "Mr. Ravell, this is Officer Patricia Kim with Seattle PD. We have a situation at your residence." My stomach dropped. "What kind of situation?" "Your ex-wife was arrested trying to break into your house about an hour ago. She's claiming she has a right to be there, that you've stolen her property. She's also claiming you've been threatening her." I looked at the clock. 11:47 p.m. "I've been in a hotel room all evening. I have witnesses, security cameras. We know. We checked with the hotel. But she's demanding to speak with you. And frankly, she's not making a lot of sense. She keeps talking about some final confrontation, about ending this once and for all. Where is she now?" "Holding cell downtown. But here's the thing. She posted bail 20 minutes ago. Someone paid $50,000 in cash." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the storm outside. "Who?" "We don't know. The payment was made through a bail bondsman, anonymous client. She'll be released within the hour." After I hung up, I sat in the dark hotel room thinking. Sylvie was out of jail, someone had paid her bail, and she was talking about final confrontations. None of that suggested someone who was ready to accept defeat. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Your hotel, room 847, 1 hour. Come alone or I start making calls to reporters about what you really did to me." I stared at the message, my mind racing. She knew where I was staying, knew my room number. She'd been watching me, planning something. I could call the police, but what would I tell them? That my ex-wife had sent me a threatening text? That she wanted to meet me in my hotel room? It sounded like a domestic dispute, not a criminal matter. I could ignore the message, but Sylvie had already proven she was willing to destroy my reputation with lies and fabricated evidence. If she went to the media with some new story about abuse or harassment, it would be front-page news before I could respond. Or I could face her one final time and end this permanently. I chose option 3, but I wasn't stupid about it. I set up my phone to record everything, placed a backup recorder in my jacket pocket, and called Mike Torres to let him know what was happening. "This is a bad idea," he said. "You should call the cops." And tell them what? That my ex-wife wants to talk to me? Tell them she's been stalking you, that she broke into your house, that she's made threats. She'll just claim I'm harassing her. It'll be her word against mine, and she's gotten very good at playing the victim. So, what's your plan? Get her confession on tape. Get her to admit to the corporate espionage, the fabricated evidence, all of it. End this with the truth instead of more lies. Torres was quiet for a moment. If you're going to do this, you need backup. I'll be in the hotel lobby and I'll have 911 on speed dial. Deal. I spent the next 45 minutes preparing. I moved all the furniture in my room to create clear sight lines to the door. I positioned my phone and backup recorder for optimal audio pickup. I even opened the window slightly, despite the rain, to ensure there was an escape route if things went badly. At exactly 1 hour after her text, there was a soft knock on my door. "It's open," I called. Sylvie walked in, and I barely recognized her. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, and she was wearing jeans and a rain-soaked jacket instead of her usual designer clothes. She looked like someone who'd been living in her car for days. "Hello, Holden." "Sylvie, you look terrible." She laughed, but it was a broken sound. "Thanks to you. Thanks to your own choices." She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, studying my face. "Do you know what it's like to lose everything? Your career, your reputation, your friends, your future? Do you know what it's like to have your wife betray you with your business competitor? To discover that your marriage was just cover for corporate espionage? Is that what you think this was about? Business?" She moved into the room, and I noticed she was carrying a large purse, the kind that could conceal almost anything. "What else would it be about?" "It was about you, Holden. It was always about you." She sat down in the chair across from me, her movements careful and deliberate. "Do you know why I married you? I thought it was because you loved me. I married you because you were safe, predictable, the kind of man who would never leave me, never cheat on me, never hurt me, the kind of man who would always be there when I needed him. And that was bad because it was boring." The words exploded out of her, 8 years of resentment finally finding voice. "Do you know what it's like being married to someone who never surprises you, who never challenges you, who never makes you feel like you're alive?" I stared at her, seeing clearly for the first time the woman I'd actually married. Not the ambitious professional I'd thought I knew, but someone desperately afraid of being ordinary. "So you decided to have an affair." "I decided to feel something. Derrick was dangerous, unpredictable. He made me feel like I was worth taking risks for." "And the corporate espionage?" She shrugged. "That was just business. You had information that could help him, and I had access to it. It seemed like a fair trade." "Fair to who?" "To me. For 8 years, I supported your career, attended your company parties, smiled at your boring colleagues. I earned that information." The casual entitlement in her voice was breathtaking. She genuinely believed she'd been justified in stealing from my company because she'd been bored in our marriage. "And the lies to the police? The fabricated evidence?" "Self-defense. You were trying to destroy my life. I was trying to protect myself and my company from criminals. You were trying to punish me for leaving you." She reached into her purse, and I tensed, ready to run for the window. But she only pulled out a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "I brought champagne. Thought we should toast the end of our marriage properly. I don't drink with criminals." "Come on, Holden. One last drink for old time's sake." She opened the bottle and poured 2 glasses, then held one out to me. When I didn't take it, she set it on the table between us. "You know, I always wondered what you'd be like if you ever got angry. Really angry, not just disappointed or hurt. I thought maybe there was some passion hidden under all that careful control." "You found out." "Did I? Because this whole revenge campaign of yours, it's just been more of the same. Methodical, logical, predictable. Even your anger is boring." She drank from her glass, watching me over the rim. I keep waiting for you to do something surprising. Something that shows you actually cared about me enough to fight for me instead of just fighting against me. I did fight for you. For 8 years, I fought for our marriage while you were planning to leave me. No, you didn't fight. You accommodated. You compromised. You tried to manage me like I was a problem to be solved instead of a woman to be won. The words hit harder than I'd expected, partly because there was truth in them. I had tried to manage our problems rather than confront them, tried to fix our marriage with logic and patience instead of passion and commitment. So what do you want, Sylvie? Why are we here? She finished her wine and set the glass down carefully. I want you to admit that you never really loved me, that you married me because I was convenient, because I fit into your plan for a successful life, that you're not angry because I betrayed you, but because I disrupted your carefully ordered existence. And if I admit that, then maybe we can both move on. Maybe we can stop destroying each other and find some way to coexist. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone who was as lost as I was. Someone who'd made terrible choices but was still, somehow, the woman I'd promised to love and cherish 8 years ago. You're right, I said finally. I didn't fight for you. I tried to fix you, tried to manage our problems, tried to make everything work through logic and compromise. I treated our marriage like a business partnership instead of a love affair. She blinked, surprised by the admission. But you're wrong about why I'm angry, I continued. I'm not angry because you disrupted my life. I'm angry because you threw away something that could have been beautiful if we'd both been brave enough to fight for it. Tears started running down her cheeks, but she didn't make any sound. I'm angry because instead of telling me you were unhappy, you decided to punish me for not reading your mind. I'm angry because instead of asking for what you needed, you decided to take it from someone else. Holden, and I'm angry because you're right. I never did surprise you. I never swept you off your feet or made you feel like you were worth taking risks for. I was safe and predictable and boring, and I let you settle for that instead of demanding more from both of us. She was crying openly now, her careful composure finally cracking. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry for all of it. I know you are. Can you forgive me? I thought about that question, really thought about it. Could I forgive her for the affair, the lies, the betrayal? Could I forgive her for destroying our marriage and both our lives in the process? I can forgive you, I said finally, but I can't trust you. And without trust, forgiveness doesn't matter. She nodded, understanding. So what happens now? Now you serve your time. You pay the consequences for your choices. And hopefully, you learn something from this that makes your next relationship better than ours was. And you? I learned something too. I learned to fight for what I want instead of just managing what I have. She stood up slowly, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I really did love you, you know, in my own screwed-up way. I know. I loved you too. She walked to the door, then turned back. For what it's worth, you surprised me tonight. This conversation, this honesty, it's the most real you've ever been with me. Too little, too late. Yeah, too little, too late. She opened the door and stepped into the hallway, then paused. Holden, the next woman you fall in love with, fight for her from the beginning. Don't wait until it's too late. Then she was gone, leaving me alone in the hotel room with 2 glasses of wine and the sound of rain against the windows. I sat there for a long time, thinking about love and marriage and the difference between winning and being right. I'd gotten my revenge, exposed her crimes, destroyed her career and reputation. I'd won completely. But sitting in that empty hotel room, listening to the storm outside, I realized that winning wasn't the same as healing. Revenge wasn't the same as justice, and being right wasn't the same as being happy. My phone rang. Mike Torres, checking on me. Everything okay up there? Yeah, it's over. How do you feel? I looked around the hotel room, at the evidence of my careful planning and methodical revenge. I thought about Sylvie, probably driving through the rain toward whatever was left of her life. I thought about 8 years of marriage that had ended in criminal charges and mutual destruction. Empty, I said finally. I feel empty. That's normal. You've been running on anger and adrenaline for months. Now that it's over, you're going to crash for a while. What comes after the crash? That's up to you. But Holden, you're free now. For the first time in years, you're completely free to decide what kind of life you want to build. After I hung up, I poured myself a glass of the wine Sylvie had brought, then stood at the window watching the storm. Lightning flickered over Elliott Bay, illuminating the city in brief, stark moments of clarity. Tomorrow, I would go back to my house, back to my job, back to the life I'd fought so hard to protect. But it would be a different life now, built on different foundations. Built on truth instead of compromise, on choice instead of accommodation, on the hard-won knowledge that sometimes the only way to save something is to be willing to lose it completely. The storm was passing, moving east toward the mountains. In a few hours, the sun would rise on a city washed clean by rain, and I would begin the work of figuring out who I was when I wasn't someone's husband, someone's victim, or someone's enemy. For the first time in months, that felt like a possibility worth fighting for.